Hey, Dr. Ray here. I'd like to remind you about the pituitary gland. I know you study the pituitary gland in histology, so you're probably aware that it has two different tissue sources, but I just want to take a minute to go over that briefly with you. And so I just wanted to start off at the beginning in embryonic growth that remind you that there is a stomadeum, oral cavity where the oropharyngeal membrane used to be. So the oropharyngeal membrane opens up this is where the developing oral cavity is located at. And one part of the pituitary actually grows upward from the epithelium of the oral cavity. We call this a hypophyseal diverticulum. So that's the little bulge that's pictured here growing upward from the superior aspect of the oral cavity. So this hypophyseal diverticulum is going to grow upward and meet a downward growth from the diencephalon that's called the neurohypophyseal diverticulum. So that's the blue portion here. So here's the neural tube, developing brain. This is the region of the diencephalon, and the neurohypophyseal diverticulum is projecting downward. And so those are going to be the two essentially tissue sources of the pituitary gland. And so when you looked at histology, remember that anterior pituitary was glandular. That's because it came from ectoderm of the oral cavity, and the posterior part of the pituitary was neural tissue with the pituocytes, and that is because it came down from the diencephalon. And essentially, there's a lot more anatomic aspects of the pituitary. You probably remember learning and checking out the stalk and checking out the different features of that. And that's because if you look in this picture here, you can see that the hypophyseal diverticulum is going to lose its connection with the oral cavity, typically in the normal aspect of it. And so you can see the tissue here is ossifying, developing spinal bone, and then you could get a little bit of cysts in this region if they don't completely go away, but it's supposed to completely regress. And so it's like the epithelium from the oral cavity is almost like, stolen really by the brain and kind of lays next to the neurohypophysis. And so in here, when you have these two tissues lying next to each other, you had different anatomic parts of the pituitary that you learned. You had the stalk coming down from the diencephalon, which they call the infundibulum, but you also have this region that came from the hypophyseal diverticulum, the pars tuberalis, and there were slightly different cells in different regions, and all of that I'm not going to go over here, but I just wanted to mainly remind you of the fact that you do have these two different tissue sources, and that in the end of the story, it matters because you can get different types of tumors. You can get an adenocarcinoma because of the fact that the hypophyseal diverticulum is from its epithelium, from ectoderm, and so this is a image here where you can see a tumor, and this tumor is sourced from the hypophyseal diverticulum. This is a craniopharyngioma, and so I just wanted to make you aware of this, remind you a little quick video so that you can take this to heart. Thanks.